Good morning. I thank you for being here. I wanted to have this brief press availability after our whip meeting. I asked Governor Martin O'Malley, who is not only the governor of my state and my good friend, but also chairs the Democratic Governors Association of our country. I asked Governor O'Malley to come to be with us this morning to discuss the effects and the ramifications of our failure to extend the debt limit and to ensure that America can pay its bills. He, in league with our governor, our fellow governor from Virginia, I know has also expressed his great concern that we not address the ability of the United States of America to remain creditworthy and pay its bills. Americans expect their country to meet our obligations. It is a moral obligation and it is a legal obligation. Surely Americans want us to facilitate that end. I'm hopeful that our Republican leadership in the House and the Republican leadership in the Senate will work together to effect policies which will allow America to be the continuing credit-worthy nation in the world. But we talk about that in terms of global effects. But we also need to talk about it, and that's what Governor O'Malley talked about it, in terms of the local effects on our states and our citizens in every one of our states. So I thank the governor for being with us. He spoke very effectively and pointedly to our caucus. Our caucus was very impressed, and I'm very pleased that he would join us this morning. I'm pleased now to yield to the governor of Maryland, the chairman of the Democratic Governors Association, Martin O'Malley.
Mr. Leader, thank you very, very much. Congressman Hoyer, thank you for everything that you're doing at this defining moment in our country's history. In the course of the next several days, we're going to determine as a nation whether we still have what it takes as people of goodwill to forge a consensus to move forward. And that's indeed what we need to do. We need to move forward with the goal of job creation, and the way forward is a balanced approach. Governors throughout our United States understand that a balanced approach is what's required in order for us to create jobs and expand opportunity and move our country forward. Whether we're Democrats or we're Republicans, all of us strive to protect our own bond ratings in our states, to balance our budgets, to have a balanced approach that moves our people forward, that creates jobs. And that's why all of us, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, are greatly concerned about the adverse impact on job creation and saving jobs that would happen if extreme members of the Republican Party needlessly drive our country either into a default or into massive public sector cuts that are shoved down upon states. We need a balanced approach, and I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that people of goodwill in both parties will come together to accomplish this goal. And the governors of the country want to be part of this solution. We believe that we can save $100 billion in Medicaid by doing a better job of aligning the incentives among those citizens that are duly eligible in Medicaid and Medicare. We believe that there's opportunities here for people of goodwill from both parties to come together. Notwithstanding the things that have divided us, the fact of the matter is every person of goodwill, whether Democrat or Republican, should want to see our country recover from this recession, create jobs, save jobs, and move forward into better times. And Mr. Leader, I'm confident that with your caucus and with people of goodwill, that we can find that balanced approach. The danger that we face right now is this: our jobs recovery is fragile, and there are two ways to kill that jobs recovery. One is by needlessly driving our country into default. We need to pay our bills. The other is with massive public sector cuts. There is a third way, a more balanced way, and that is the way that we need to come together to forge, as not just as Democrats or Republicans, but really as Americans. We need to create jobs. We need to save jobs. That's our primary goal, and the way forward is a balanced approach.
I thanked Governor for his observations. He was very compelling in our caucus. In closing, let me say, in terms of a balanced approach, which we have been working towards, obviously a balanced approach is represented by a number of commissions, by the 6 senators who made proposal, but there have been other balanced approach put forward for consideration, which involve both, yes, restraining spending, but not doing so in a way that will undercut our ability to get our economy growing and creating the jobs that Governor O'Malley talked about, making sure that our people have the opportunities that they need and want for themselves and for their children, but also to have revenues which will enhance our ability to invest in our future. Our president said we need to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build our international competitors. If we do not do that, if we undermine investment in the future, our kids will not have the kind of future they want. Now, I would like to call your attention to a Washington Post editorial that I read today, because I think it is particularly important as Republicans who signed a pledge to Mr. Norquist, saying that they would not in any way deal with revenues. I think Mr. Norquist has made a very, very important statement that I hope that they each take into consideration. In the Washington Post editorial, it says this: the cost of extending President George Bush's tax cuts for another decade could be pursued without being accused of breaking their promise, said Grover Norquist. Now, the quote is this: not continuing, this is Mr. Norquist, a quote, not continuing a tax cut is not technically a tax increase. That, of course, was discussed when they were talking about ethanol tax benefit in the Senate. But I am hopeful that Speaker Boehner, who has indicated he wants to have a large, grand design, will be able to pursue that in a balanced way so that we can put our country on a sound fiscal path, and as importantly, bring our country out of this deepest of recessions that anybody has experienced since the Great Depression. Will be a plan that we can implement, agree upon, and do so in the next few days. Thank you very much. First of all, as I said, I think the Speaker has made it very clear in his discussions with President Obama that he thought reaching a balanced result, making sure that we do not default, and ensuring that the economy grows is his objective. I take him at his word. It is now hopefully going to be possible for him to lead his party toward that end, in cooperation with the President of the United States, with the leadership of both parties in the United States Senate, and the leadership of my party in our House. So I give him credit for articulating a desire to get to an end that I think is important for our country. Governor?
I believe that there are some members of the Republican Party who, in order to defeat President Obama in the next election, would like to kill the jobs recovery now, either by default or by massive sudden cuts to public sector jobs. Having said that, I believe that a majority of public servants in the proud party of Lincoln want what's best for our country and would like to see our country move forward, would like to see our country start creating and saving more jobs again. And that's really the resonant space that we need to find as the great and diverse people that we are. We may differ on approach, but I think the main goal that members of the majority of the members of the party of Lincoln desire is to see our country move forward. And some of the recent polling that was in one of my favorite daily periodicals, the Washington Post, they pointed out that almost 50% of registered Republicans believe that a balanced approach is what's required on revenues and spending. Overwhelming majorities of independents and overwhelming majorities of Democrats. But certainly, if half of registered Republicans believe a balanced approach is what's required, certainly there's at least that large a number of Republicans in Congress of goodwill who can find a way forward. Governor McDonnell in Virginia, his state, like Maryland, is a state that has defended, maintained, and made the tough choices necessary to have a AAA bond rating. On both sides of the Potomac, Maryland's AAA bond rating and Virginia's AAA bond rating is threatened by our potential inability to pay the bills of the United States, the wealthiest republic on the planet. There's no need for us to go into default. There's a balanced way forward, and we need to find it.
Let me just say, Jim, let me just add one observation. Unfortunately, over the last few months, we have considered two pieces of legislation. One, which was the Republicans put on the floor to lift the debt limit, was designed to fail, and in fact, the bill they put on the floor, every one of them voted against. Every one of them. A bill that we considered this week was clearly designed to give Republicans a vote without any expectation that that would become law and affect the end of raising the debt limit so that America would not default on its bills. So hopefully we will not go down that path in the next few days, because it will not prove fruitful. One more question. Well, we don't know until we know what the construct of the design of a comprehensive package to address the long-term problem. We have a short-term problem, clearly, and that is by August 2nd lifting the debt limit so that America pays its bills and does not adversely affect every American family. I think every American family needs to know that, and I think what the governor indicated in these polls is reflecting that, and 71% of independents believe it needs to be a balanced package. Republicans believe it needs to be a balanced package, and overwhelmingly Democrats in the polling data that Gallup and others have shown us. But we are working towards, as I said, the Speaker believes that it ought to be a grand design. Nancy Pelosi, the leader of our party, believes there ought to be a grand design. And I think it's fair to say that a large number of members of the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, share that view. But we have a short-term challenge. We must meet that challenge. America must pay its bills and be responsible. And we have a long-term challenge of bringing the deficit down, reducing the debt as a percentage of our GDP, but in creating jobs and investing in our future. Creating jobs was at the center of America's concern in the last election. Unfortunately, in the House of Representatives, we have not addressed that in the first 7 months of this year. Thank you very much.